Welcome to What Lies Ahead, the podcast where I explore everything related to the hardcore scene and community. I'm your host, Chris Raffini, and on this episode, I have John Scanlon from Miles to Go Presents. He has brought some of the biggest shows in the New York area, booking everywhere from the newly renovated AMH, Monarch in Brooklyn, to the Massapequa VFW, and beyond. When he's not promoting shows, he's the lead singer of his own band, Dead Last, which is a raw old school style with various releases. Scanlon, thanks for being on the show, man. How's it going?
Good, man. Thanks for that intro. I really appreciate you having me.
Of course, appreciate you honestly. And with every scene, there's always a new wave of promoters or in any facet of music. So you can go back to Artie, Michelle, Piwak, Christian McKnight, Zimmerman, and now you and Miles to Go and your crew are absolutely killing it with the shows that you have coming up. It's like I'm almost on Instagram every day waiting for like what's coming next, like because
Uh,
there's so many good, great shows, whether they're on Long Island or across the East Coast, which is great to see. So, but to take it back a little bit,
mhm.
how did you get into hardcore? How did you do you remember your first show and what led to you? And I said this to I think Christian McKnight when he was on. What made it
Yeah.
lead to her like, okay, this is going to be every weekend for the rest of my life?
Yeah. I mean, I will always credit Matt McNally, who used to play in Crime and Stereo. He was a bass player as well as Incendiary. Uh, he was the older brother of one of my best friends growing up. And one day he literally was like, there's a show at the Hungarian Hall. You guys should go. And me and my friends didn't know any of the bands. We never been to a show before, and we just went. And it was This Is Hell Soldiers, like Straight from the Path, Incendiaries, I think first show. So I think it was like 2007 or something. But yeah, it was just because we lived blocks away from the Hungarian Hall and because Matt told us to go there.
That's
And
Smithtown, right?
Ronkonkoma.
Ronkonkoma, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was literally it was just like on a whim that I got introduced to hardcore that way. And then from there my friends made bands and went to shows like that. And yeah, I mean for a minute they were playing this other Ronkonkoma spot called Tracks, which was what more well known for like metalcore stuff. And then a Long Island Fest happened there one time, which was cool. But yeah, so it went from like hardcore to metalcore and then kind of back to hardcore, and that's where I've been.
Nice, built from there. Remember your first, uh, like when you first heard it? Was it going to the shows, or did you hear it prior to that with you with some of the guys you were talking about?
I definitely remember being shown like Crime and Stereo through like Matt, like when we were at in Tim's basement, if Matt was home, he would be listening to music and Matt would play, whatever maybe. But other than that, I definitely didn't know of hardcore. Like I've heard of hardcore accidentally, whether like I mean in terms of like playing like I think Tony Hawk's Underground
Hmm.
1 or 2 had like 25 to Life on it, but I didn't know what the fuck that was. But yeah, that was my first introduction to hardcore for sure. Was that show and Matt McNally just basically showing me things.
Showing things, right? So then from there, so you said roughly '07. You probably from there like, okay, I'm going to start. You started going to shows. I would guess from there and building from there. What led you into booking shows? And do you remember your first show? And
Yeah.
then what built from there to where you are?
Yeah, so as you mentioned him before, Jake, he was the one when I was like because when I first started going to shows, it was Ronnie and Hernick were booking a lot of shows, and then Jake kind of took over. And when Jake was doing shows, he eventually got to a point where he started to book bigger things that weren't just hardcore. You know what I mean? Like he would book a lot of like pop punk, hip hop, like all different genres, metal. And I felt like he was leaning way more into like not necessarily leaning into those genres, but because he was spending so much time on all these other big events, like I personally felt like some of the hardcore shows were kind of taking a back burner, and I just wanted to kind of give more love to those. And at that time, Jake was already asking me to kind of help him with shows here and there. So at just one point, I was just like, all right, I'm going to try to do my own thing. But also, I like didn't really know exactly what to do. But I don't know why. I don't know why I just didn't ask Jake to like help me with my first show. But I actually asked Hernick, and
Mhm.
me and Hernick did a show together. It was this band Born Annoying, which was members of Get Real from Jersey. They had like a side project band, but that show was at Glen Cove Moose Lodge, and I consider that technically the first show I like fully booked. I couldn't even tell you what year that was. I think it was like maybe 2012 12, but I might be off.
Yeah, that's right where I live, actually. So how do you
Yeah.
find a place like that? You just calling around, looking around, you heard they did something?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like it sucks because as I'm older, I haven't really been able to get like boots on the ground, like driving around asking for VFWs or even like, I could just call them too, but
Right.
back then it was just like me and my friends kind of just trying to like find places, and there was this kid, um, Tom DeAngelis, who lived in Glen Cove, who actually found that spot and like did a show there, I think, or I forget if he did a show or if he just mentioned it to us that like it would be down to do shows. And yeah, I just contacted them. Basically, if I hear of a venue being down to at least attempt a show, I'll try it always at least once, even if it's like not the best experience. I'll give everything a shot once. You know what I mean?
Just to see how it goes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So with that, so then you start booking shows and you're finding places. How did you eventually get to AMH, which was, I guess that was Broadway Bar, I guess at that point in time, if I'm correct. How did that lead to there? And then you had Mass Peak with VFW, and then you're leading into Brooklyn and stuff like that. So how did those kind of it just grew from there?
Yeah, well, I think in terms of my timeline of what venues I like on Long Island that I was really booking at, like I would definitely say the one that was in my like golden age, quote unquote, of like when I was younger, I always booked book shows at this place in Sayville called SRC, and that was just like a hall very similar to Hungarian Hall, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And I was doing shows there for a while, and my shows were getting bigger. And at the same time, you've dealt with it a bunch in your past, but like venues come and go, and Long Island can be very limited at times. So Amityville has been there literally forever. It's been a venue for fucking years, way before my time. And I know that Dan Valentino was taking over the spot with Sal and Eric. And we just started naturally doing shows there as well. Just because, like I said, venues are limited. So, like, if Sayville didn't work out, I needed another place to do it. So I do Broadway, and eventually just built a relationship and got way more involved on the AMH side back in like 2000, and I don't even know what year that was. I mean, like, it has to be at least like 2018 or so, maybe a little bit longer since
Mhm.
me and Jake have had way bigger hands in the venue. But yeah, from there, yeah, just I like a majority of my Long Island shows definitely happen at AMH. And then obviously I would also use the Mass Peak VFW because I do miss that feel of just kind of doing a VFW show. Like I really don't think there's anything better than that. Like as much as I love AMH and as biased as I could be about AMH, it's still like nothing can really replicate the feeling of just being at a VFW hall. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
VFW halls are, it's like, I remember for me, that's really where it started. There was the Roxy Music Hall, which was, that it was hardcore shows there. They absolutely were, but it was a different kind of place. The PWAC was the place actually, and
Yeah.
then Deja One and all that. But VFW halls, I agree with you. There was just something about them, homely feel. You're in a VFW, you're seeing the bands play. It was
Yeah.
great. And it's awesome that you have Massapequa doing that still and running strong. You have like a couple shows, give or take a month, that go there.
Yeah.
And it seems like you have a great relationship with them there, right?
Yeah, I'm very lucky that I personally didn't find the venue. This dude John who plays in this band Inner Love, he found the venue and he hooked them up with me, and they've been great. Like it's actually so crazy how lucky we are to have a VFW like that, because in my years of like talking to all these other VFWs and everything, like you'll do a show or two there and then someone will like fuck something up and then that's
Right.
it, it's over. But they've been really lenient. They've been putting up with a lot of bullshit lately, and funny enough, they weren't my shows, but I happened to be there and I like talked them through it and everything's like cool. So they're still down to do shows, but it's just so easy for someone to fuck a venue up, and I'm glad VFW has been still kicking, knocking on wood. But I am very jealous of people older than me that got to experience like the PWAC and like Local 7 and stuff like that, because
Mhm.
like I would love for there to just be like a spot ran by like a warehouse spot, and just like people who run like its own little thing. Like obviously AMH is like a legit establishment, but the DIY in me would love to just go to like a sketchy, warehouse and be like, oh,
Warehouse.
like it's a shitty stage there, but like the shows are crazy. Like I love that shit. Like there's a warehouse in Richmond that does shows, and it's one of my favorite places to see shows because of that environment.
Because of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what's nice. It seems like now you have a bunch of venues, but certain established venues that you use, whether it's Brooklyn, obviously Long Island, there's two big ones that you really are go-tos, and you have others obviously that you
Yeah.
use. So what are some of the challenges that you find sometimes in booking shows? And that could be a lot of different things because I
Yeah.
say this a lot, and I said this to Christian, I said this to Joe Hardcore on the last episode. It's, people see a flyer go out. I'm like dating myself, a flyer go out, but like an ad, and they see this Instagram and they just see the bands on it. They see the time, and it's like, wow, that was put together. But there's so much involved
Yeah.
in putting a show together. There's so many logistics, and especially with you're dealing with, I feel like now.
Yeah.
And by the way, you handle it so patiently with everything. You really do.
Thank you. I appreciate
You
it.
really, really do. And so, what are some of the challenges in terms of booking shows? And I don't necessarily meaning dealing with the bands. It's more of just you're pushing something far out. You're trying to get five, six bands on it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that could be a little challenging when you're doing that?
I mean, there's a lot of challenges, and I'll go into them if you don't mind.
Whatever you want to do, yeah.
Like I think my biggest challenge lately is like I think every promoter goes through this at some point where it's not like you should always be trying to one up yourself, but at some point you're like, well, I did this and that was awesome, and like people were really excited, but like if I want to keep that momentum going, it's like I need to continuously follow up with that. Like I still book smaller shows all the time, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm not negating that whatsoever to bands that are like younger and trying to be upcoming. But like when it kind of is intimidating to have a bunch of eyes on you sometimes and being like, what's the next like big thing? Because it's like it's a lot of pressure. And I'm sure Joe and Christian can both attest to that
Yeah.
like it's not a fun pressure to have, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm definitely lucky in some of the lineups I've pulled off, and the people that trust me, that like if I hit them up, they're like, all right, like I know this show is like Scanlon's going to be trying to make it like an event. So it's, I'm very grateful that people trust me. Um, but that's like my most current challenge for sure is just like the one upping. And then another current challenge of mine that I like feel very bad about is that as I get older and like I'm doing more shows so frequently, and like I don't just do hardcore shows obviously at this point, and I haven't done
Yeah.
that in a while. Like I do a lot of all these other genres, so I'm constantly being hit up by like these booking agents, and I fucking hate the industry world so much, but it's just like the world I live in. So I do sometimes I like can't know every single new band that's popping up in terms of locally. Like I can't always like think of a newer band and like one who's been hitting me up and like trying to have them get on shows. And I generally feel really bad about it because like I think the people that are always best to give those bands a chance and like help them build is someone smaller in the DIY scene who is down at like who like finds a venue that can like they won't lose money if they do a show and only 30 people are at it. You know what I mean? Like right now I actually don't really have that capability. Like I used my motto for a long time when I first started doing shows is like I will give everyone a chance. Same thing I was saying with the venue is like I'll give everyone a chance. Like if this person is touring or if this band is like new and really just wants to get out there, like and they have a date they want to do, I'll hit up whatever venue. I'll try to make it happen and just see how it goes. Whereas now it's a lot harder just because of like time and resources. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so that's one thing that bums me out because I feel like that's the only thing that's not true to myself is I'm not doing a lot of the smaller shows that I used to. And I feel really bad because I don't want people to think I'm like purposely not booking their band or purposely like ignoring them. It's just I kind of have way more on my plate now than I definitely had in the past. But if you're listening and you're a younger person who's trying to get into shows, please start because there's plenty of bands that are down to book. You
Yeah.
know,
For sure, man. And it is impossible. There's a lot of new bands, and you can't get to know everybody. And
yeah,
and you have the new venue, and it's hard to do all that. And you obviously, like you said, you do few hardcore shows, which are obviously huge. You do a lot of huge hardcore shows, but you also have metal. You have
yeah,
what in some glam rock bands. I mean, you do a little of everything, and you
yeah,
have to. You have to do that with that you have with AMH now. That is a legit venue on Long Island now. It is, and
yeah,
it's nice to have that. Do you ever? Because I started off. What did I say to you in the beginning? I'm like, I go on Instagram looking
yeah,
what's the next show coming.
yeah.
So I'm kind of feeding into what you just said about yourself. You're like, do you ever get to stop and be like, damn, okay, I put together, like you stop and look at like the silent majority weekend shows that are going together and you're like, God, this is a cool weekend that we put together. Or it's just, okay, I'm looking into April, I'm looking into May. You got a chance to do that?
Sadly, I actually, actually, what's the right word for it? Not reminiscing, but I was kind of like thinking about that recently, where it's like I can put all these events on, but I never really fully, I don't think, get to ever appreciate it. Like, like I know for a fact, like, and I'm not tooting my own horn, I'm not an ego by or a narcissist by any fucking means, but I know if I like step back and been like, damn, I have all these bands playing the same weekend with a band that I never thought I would ever be able to book, and at this point I've booked them like 7 times or something like that. Like it definitely is insane to me. And like I think a project I want to do when I get older or like when I stop, if I ever stop eventually booking shows, is like kind of make a book for myself in terms of like every flyer I've ever like a show for every flyer I've
Mm.
ever done and kind of like be able to look back at it because I don't think I'll ever actually be able to sit down and appreciate or give myself a pat on the back on all the shows I've done over the years just because things are constantly moving,
All the
you know?
time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you guys dropped when AMH first opened and you dropped all those shows, it was like
Yeah.
15 of them. It was just like there was a lot. I mean, it was a lot. But then right after you dropped it, you could enjoy it for a moment, and then you're probably like, all right, got to get into the fall now.
Yeah. Well, and that's the
And
funny thing too is like, like I remember just like, and it's so crazy to say it because it's like, yeah, like AMH opening, and it's like I have like a Gorilla Biscuit show, which like me legitimately like however many years ago would be like that is fucking insane. Like I can't believe I've done that, and that's like probably my like sixth Gorilla Biscuit show now. It's not like I'm just like it's just another GB show, but it's like I definitely miss the rush of like there's nothing better than like finally being able to book a show for a band you've been trying to book fucking forever.
Mhm.
So, like I do hope eventually when there's that upcoming like Long Island person, I can like hand some stuff to them where they're really psyched that it's happening for them, and like I'll be like, fuck yeah, like I know exactly how you feel.
Cool. Do you have obviously there's various venues, and you said you a lot of times you have bands come to you, you have agents come to you. When
Yeah,
you're looking at a show to book, how do you choose the venue? I mean, it could be obviously as simple as a booking agent coming to you, like, look, we're looking at Brooklyn.
yeah,
But when you're looking at booking a show and you're like, this might be a better fit for the Monarch. This might be a better fit for Mass Peak or VFW.
yeah.
AMH would be really good here. How do you go through that?
There's some different factors like you said there are some agents or bands that will hit you up and be like this is like where the band wants to play or this is where we want to play like can we get holds there and like if I think it's not the right move I'll at least mention it to them but still get them the dates at the venue and then maybe some other venue too and they can kind of pick. I would say that the option of the venue definitely relies on the kind of show it is like not to beat a dead horse, but with Long Island being how it is and how it's been for so long, it's like obviously if there's a show that's like on the heavy side and I think like maybe like 150 people will go to, and by no means is that a bad number. Like I feel like, oh well, that show would make way more sense at the VFW, but because it's a heavy show, it's like I can't risk it there. So I have to either do it at AMH or I have to do it in Brooklyn or something. So like that's kind of where I've run into some struggles. But picking a venue is very, very important, and I think it very much so can affect the show. Because like if you have a like the same show, say there's 150 people inside AMH, it's like the vibes is different. It's not at like crazy probably, or it still could be, but it's like there's still so much room, so people are going to be like, oh, maybe the show was poorly attended, but in reality, it's actually pretty well attended.
Right.
When if that show was at the VFW, it'd be packed and crazy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So making sure the venue size and the venue vibe is very important when it comes to a show, in
Awesome.
my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. No, and I agree, and that makes sense. And now that you have with AMH, what AMH is what 400 now, the new one.
Yeah, yeah, we saw the 450.
450 you could go, right? And
Yeah.
Mass Peak with VFW all is I'm so bad at
Well,
this.
I mean, I sell it to way more than should be in there,
It's
but
right.
but yeah, we'll say 250. No one from the VFW is going to hear this, hopefully. So, yeah, we sell
Yeah,
it 250.
so about half. But then when AMH before you guys obviously renovated it, it was almost similar to Mass Peak with VFW, well, I guess a little bit in terms of
Y-
size. So
Yeah, we would sell it to 225, which was like sardines. So, like the VFW was technically bigger than the old AMH, yeah.
old AMH, yeah. So do you how do you consider when you're putting together lineups?
Mm,
There's obviously it's very cut and dry sometimes. Obviously, like you have an agent coming in, but you have you have a band come through and it's like Judge coming through. I'm using that
Yeah.
as an example, but there's a band like that coming through, Mind Force coming through. It's like, okay, they have probably some bands that maybe they're doing a weekend with,
Yeah.
and then how you kind of structure everything out in terms of shows, and how you obviously also want to spread it out because you don't want some of the bands playing too close together. If that
Yeah. Of course, and like before I get into like how I come up with like ideas or whatever, it's like that is definitely a big thing that bands, especially current bands, have to like worry about is like overplaying is definitely a thing, and like you shouldn't do it. You know, like even if your sets are as crazy as they can be, it's like it's always better to space it out. You don't want to space it out too much because people can forget about you, and I've definitely seen it, but you want to space it out. But yeah, getting into like booking the actual lineup, if it's like say the most perfect way to book a show, in my opinion, is if it's just if someone gives me like one headlining band, or if I come up with a band that's like there's no one else on the show. It's not a package. It's just like I can kind of like mold the show however I want based on this one band. I prefer it that way because, like, for example, the American Nightmare show, it's like it was just American Nightmare, and then I was like, all right, well, if I was a well, I am a fan, but if I was like someone who was going to come to the show, like, what's like the best lineup that would make sense with American Nightmare, and I just try to do that, and like for that show, it worked great, you know. But when it's like a package, it's a little bit harder because it's like depends if the package already has a vibe or if it makes sense, you know. But I definitely at you know I it's stupid to say because I feel like it's very tactical and like industry talk, but like obviously I want to book bands that also draw people. You know, I'm not saying that's the only reason why I will ever book your band. Like,
But
you
it's
know,
very important. I
it
mean,
is
yeah,
important,
yeah,
obviously. You know what I mean? But it's like at the same time, it's like there are definitely bands that I like way more that probably me and only like five other people care about than like maybe a band that draws like 300 people. And like, yeah, it's like it's hard to like kind of meet the middle ground because I mean, there's definitely been shows where I'm like, all right, this is like a banger show. All right, well, for the opening band, I'm just gonna put on a band that I really enjoy. Or if it's like yeah, show that like they give me a tour package, but I'm like, it's like not that great. And then on the side, I'm like begging like one of like the better drawing like locals, like, can you please play the show? Because like, there's a lot of factors that go into a show and in terms of
yeah.
like how the lineup lands up. But I try to do my best that's like most fair and like what people would be psyched on, hopefully.
Yeah, no, you do for sure. And I think one of the things that you do very well is how you blend. You blend with the old,
Yeah.
and then you put the new. And when I say new, you're talking 5 to 7 years. New for me because I'm
Yeah, I get it.
I'm from I'm mid and late '90s. So, but newer, and
Yeah.
these bands kill now
Yeah.
that are the newer bands, and you blend them well on top of doing the new shows like the Judge
Yeah.
show. You have the stress on there,
Yeah.
which was like a really cool thing to do. How far sometimes do you look, or do you feel comfortable? Let's say with AMH booking far out. Like, do you look how far ahead do you look, or you can't do that because it's like I have these shows coming up, or are you really looking ahead, or you wait for it to come to you, or do you
Oh
look
no,
to jump in?
I
Yeah,
mean, I have shows confirmed in December. You know what I mean? But that's because like that's more on like the touring side where it's like bands that have agents and it's other genres. Like I mean, even hardcore wise, I have something confirmed in like October. You know, and that's still 8 months away. But if I'm trying to build my own thing, I don't know. It really it just depends. Like sometimes something will happen super last minute. Sometimes things will happen months in advance. You know, it all depends on like the kind of band it is. Like I'm not putting them on blast because this isn't a diss by any means, but like say with like Silent Majority, like they're a band that there's a lot of moving parts. You know, it's like there's people that live in other states, so that's not something that you can kind of just do in like a month. You know what I mean? So like for something like
yeah,
that, it's like me and Tommy started the conversation about these March shows probably back in I don't know, probably like November or even October. You know, so it's like some shows take a while. It just all depends on the parts that are in play.
right. And the plan, was it always 3 days for that one?
Actually, no. I mean, the plan was definitely two, only because like it's them playing AMH. The last time they played, they like the Monarch, it was sold out. And that's 1,500 people. So it's like obviously, or even when last time they played Long Island. like a true headliner. I think that was technically, oh no, they because they played after Revolution. But they did the VFW. Oh no, oh yeah. Sorry, I'm even getting mixed up on the dates I have with them.
Mhm.
But yeah, well, like for example, the Revolution shows, they did two shows and those were 600 cap and those sold out in seconds. So to do AMH, which is a 450 cap, I was like, all right, we should at least plan for two. But I also like, even though I'm a promoter, at first I'm a fan. So like
Right.
I don't want them to overplay. I don't want to beat a dead horse. So it's like I'd rather them like they could probably fucking do multiple days if they really wanted to. Like they could probably do a week, but it's smarter just to do like just do two, and just be like, all right, leave people wanting more kind of thing. But
Mhm.
so yeah, the plan was two. Um, I had the first lineup, which is the one that was announced first, fully completed, and I was like, all right, this is like for sure gonna be great. And then the second lineup too was also completed because I wanted to make sure I could announce it like shortly after. And I was like, these two shows are 100% gonna blow out, but like let's just see. So they both went up, they both sold out quick, and then that's when I went to Tommy. I was like, "Do you want to do a third one?" But the only thing is if we do a third one, I want the lineup to be like good or at least stand out because just to have it be like silent majority and some locals, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but after already people spending their Fridays and Saturdays and spending so much money, it's like you got to make sure like people want to at least go for this third show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, and luckily we were able to pull that one off, and we pulled that one off within like a week or so. And yeah, we're pretty excited about it. And there's also a band playing that's not technically announced either that we can't announce, but that's why,
Mhm.
it'll be another band, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah, it should be a fun weekend. Looking forward to that. Uh, have you ever, before I get into AMH, and then I want to obviously talk Dead Last with you,
Yeah,
talk about Dead Last with you. Have you ever? Because obviously you're the guy from Long Island, so a lot of people from out of state. I'm sure you connect with a lot of people out of state in terms of shows and bands and all that. Um, have you ever booked a band's tour? Have you ever thought of doing something along those lines?
yeah. I mean, I have booked tours, but it's like not full US's. Like I've booked technically like I don't know, like week to 2 week long runs, but it's all because of kind of like how you said, like I've made so many like friends and also just like acquaintances and contacts in all these different areas. So it's like for example, I'm helping this band from Germany called Echo Chamber. We've toured with them before, but they're coming out here and I'm helping them book. Like they're only here for a week, but I got them all their shows for that 1 week. So it's like I won't consider myself a booking agent by any means, but I definitely have the ability to. And I mean, I basically am Gorilla Biscuit's booking agent at this point. So like I've also been booking in all different states and all this other shit too. So like, yeah, I guess I kind of am, but I
Yeah,
don't claim it.
claim it, but yeah, but
Yeah,
you can. So I guess let's talk AMH. And when did well, first, just to put it in perspective, just going to all the shows that I've been to there, just going and watching,
yeah,
to also playing there a
yeah,
couple of times. It is so well organized, and everyone that you have working there they're so helpful. Like
yeah,
in terms of so just put it out there. It's just I do. I think everyone's super helpful there, and it's just a cool spot and good energy when you're in there. So, but when did the idea come? Obviously, you always want to probably let's expand it, but were you keeping your eye next door on the place as it went? How did that go about?
Well, first off, thank you for saying that about the staff and everything. I think everyone who works there cares so much about live shows and music and the Long Island scene, where it's like that's the kind of people you would want to work at a venue. You know what I mean? You want people who actually take it seriously. It's not even necessarily taking their job seriously. They just take the scene as a whole seriously. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I give them a lot of credit because obviously, like they're put through the ringer too. It's like they're the ones working all these shows, It's like, oh, you see all the really big good shows that like you guys want to go to, but then, they're there working the smaller shows too, or like some of the dead nights, you know what I mean? So they put a lot of time into it and they deserve a lot of praise as well. So thank you for saying that. But yeah, in terms of the expansion, I can only speak on it as much as like say like Dan or Jay can, but to my knowledge, basically what happened is the salon next door was going out of business or like whatever it may be, and the landlord kind of gave Dan the heads up, and Dan, technically that. salon is part of the same building. Like it's just that's why we were able to knock the wall down because whoever owned it just put a wall up however many years ago. And we also technically own the barber shop next door as well. So if that ever went out, like who knows, you could probably do something else.
And I
So
apologize. I forgot. Is that the other side of the bar?
that's the other side of the bar. So it's not
Right.
like we could. I doubt that AMH would knock the wall down and make it bigger or anything. But like, if that barbershop for whatever reason like went out of business, like who knows? There could be something added there that could be potentially a part of AMH, or it would just end up just being something else that's just rented out, whatever. But so yeah, that's basically what happened with the expansion. Was just the landlord kind of approached Dan and mentioned it, and then they were kind of just paying rent for an empty spot for quite a while because the idea of knocking it down and all that was like probably 2 years old. But if anyone works construction, with permits and like getting all that passed, it took forever. And then at one point, Dan was actually able to buy into the building, so like they own it now. So it's like it's a way better situation. So.
Yeah, it's great. It really is. It's a great venue. The sound is excellent too. It's the other thing. The sound guy's great there.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Tom and everyone is great.
yeah. You
And
do
then
a
what's
sorry.
that? Sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I actually forgot to even mention like why we thought of expanding was like, and I mean I won't take offense to it. None of us who have a hand in it won't take offense to it. Like we all know AMH was what it was before it expanded. It was just a glorified dive bar. It was a hallway. But that's where a lot of shows happen, and there's a lot of love there. But like we're definitely very grateful that we were able to make it bigger and make it more of like a legit venue.
Yeah, and the old AMH we'll call it. It's cool. There were I think some of the bands you guys had to go through there. Quicksand, the Get Up
Yeah,
Kids. I mean,
yeah,
seeing the Get Up Kids in a couple of days at Mulcahy's, and you had them in the older AMH, which is great. And plus of all the hardcore bands, and
yeah,
Incendiary used to play there, obviously, as you know, with you obviously because you put it together with their show that they have every December. So
yeah.
yeah, so that's but now the way it is opened up, it's a great venue, and it's obviously what's great with you're doing is it's hardcore, but you're doing a lot of other genres of music, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you give someone? Because you obviously have a lot of experience with this. For someone who's looking to get into this and looking to book shows, and what advice would you give them?
He's kind of like, I mean, it's silly to say, but you kind of just have to like just do it. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be, I mean, it might not seem scary or might not seem intimidating at first, but like when you're finally at that first show and like you're the one who everyone is like looking at and like coming to and asking for questions, that's when it'll really hit you like a ton of bricks. But it's fine. It's just normal. My advice is just make sure you're fully covered before the show happens. Like, make sure you fucking dotted all your I's and cross T's, whatever the fuck that saying is, just because it's like you don't want to go to a show where like you don't have a sound person figured out, you don't have a door person figured out, you don't have a back line. Like, there's like so much shit that does go into it that like people probably don't even think about. But like, if you ever need any questions too, and like you're local, like feel free to hit me up, and I'll make sure to give you a checklist of things that are make sure you 100% have this covered before the doors open. But just to start doing it, literally, just like if there's a band you really like, or even if there's just like a couple local bands you really like, just ask them like, hey, like, you want to play a show on this date? Like I found a venue and like where I'm just gonna try it. And like you'll be surprised at how many people are just like, yeah, fuck it, like let's do it. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
don't ever get discouraged if someone says no because like they said no this time, but who knows? Next time they might say yes. You know what I mean? Don't take anything to heart. Just sometimes people just can't make stuff happen.
Yeah, you can't. You're right. There must be with this like tremendous highs and then not lows, but
Yeah.
things are like, whoa, you have like the weekend, you have the silent majority weekend, and then you think you may have a show coming with something, and then you get the feet wiped up under from you, maybe. So
Yeah.
yeah, what happens?
100%.
Yeah. And then another thing that's a good point what you made is what you're doing, you're running around checking all these different things out. And you're
Yeah.
right. Like if you don't have someone working the door, obviously AMH is,
Yeah.
you guys got a real thing going. But like you don't have someone working the door and some of those other things, it's kind of a problem, right? So it's like you can't be everywhere at once.
Yeah, and I've even dealt with that in as of recent, like I'll do a VFW show and sometimes maybe I'll forget to get the door person or maybe the door person just can't make it and then I'm doing door and still running around. There was a show recently that literally the sound person and the door person bailed like
Oh,
like day of, and like luckily the sound equipment was already there, but more or less I set it up and I was just like, this is the sound and I hope there's no feedback. And
nah.
the show went on. So, you
And you
know,
just roll with it, right?
yeah, and that's sometimes that happens. Don't try to do that by any means, but like make sure you have a sound person 100% and a door person. But yeah, like literally it doesn't take much to do a show. You just have to find people that are into your vision and down to just give you a shot. That's all.
Yeah. So typically, what do you have? Obviously, you have like we discussed AMH, and you have everybody there. But like you have Mass Peak with VFW.
Yeah.
Is it used typically? And I see familiar faces, but do you there? But do you typically have the same crew of people, or it doesn't really work that way because you guys have so many shows going on? It also depends on people's availability.
Yeah.
Versus you have like a crew of people, like okay, I know I have them to come and help out.
I definitely have like a go-to group. Like John, the one who found the venue, plays Inner Love. He does sound at the VFW for almost all my shows because he does sound at all of his shows too. So he's my go-to guy. But like, yeah, like if he can't work it, then I'm like, all right. Well, and then I started like going down the list. And I definitely, like I said, I don't have like a crew that's working every single fucking show, but I have like my go-tos and they're basically there almost every time.
Mhm.
But it's not frequent enough at the VFW or any of these other venues that aren't AMH or Monarch or, like dedicated venues where it's like I can't have a designated crew because they wouldn't have work all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I definitely used to do shows at the VFW like, 3 to 4 times a month. And since AMH, because obviously I need to like make some stuff happen there more so than the VFW. It's like I do a VFW show like maybe once every month or every 2 months where it's like no one would be able to like always have their schedule open just for me for that. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, so it's actually yeah, I remember it was the Solid Majority show at the Monarch. That was I don't know, a year and a half ago, give or take. I
yeah,
do remember you actually were at the door for a little bit for that.
yeah.
Yeah, you think you had to be. Then you were moving around doing other things.
Yeah, that was more so just because I think one of their because like at like a Monarch and AMH and like any of these venues like they usually have their own like door
Mhm.
person or whatever. And even with I think they had two door people or one whatever it was. I think they had two, but like the line was just so long and it was just taking a while to get people in where I even just hopped up and I was just like, all right, I'll scan people in and just like like I'm not above doing anything at any of my shows. Like I'm still very much so DIY. Like I'm on the stage managing, making sure everything's going all right. I'll do doors, I'll fucking help with sound stuff, I'll load bands in and out. Like I'll never just be sitting on my ass if I'm at the show, unless it's like very much so well like maintained. But for the most part, I'm still very much involved.
Yeah, no, you 100% are, and I think that was like the point where I was going at with this. So I've seen you do that. I thought you said maintaining the like you also maintain the crowd. You're in the back. You're in the back by AMH. So you work in the door. You're literally doing a little bit of everything, and that's why everything goes as smooth as it can. To be honest with you, so I want to talk a little Dead Last actually
Sure.
now. Yeah. So how did Dead Last start?
Um, it was like me and Richie and John. Richie's a guitar player and John's the drummer. We've talked about doing a band like this for a while, and it just never came to fruition because like I was in a band called The Fight that was going on at the time, and then they were in a band called Rule 'Em All that was going on at the time, and we just had other band stuff going on, and then funny enough, during COVID happened, and there was plenty of time in the world, so we finally just like got together and actually did it. The first I almost called it a different name, but the first Dead Last song was actually probably written like 4 years before the first actual Dead Last song, if that makes sense. Like our
Mhm.
first like idea was, probably 8 or 9 years ago, but the band didn't actually start until 2021 or 2020, whatever it is. So
Okay.
but yeah, we just got together and just wrote like a demo, which ended up just being a 7 inch. But I mean, I still count it as a demo because it was the first thing we did. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's more or less just how it happened.
Yeah. So when you guys started, in terms of your sound, like I said, I find like it's very like a raw old school sound, but you could tell it's 2025, like and that's what's great about it. It's in your face.
Yeah,
You guys put on a really good live show too.
thanks.
But when you guys started, we were like, was that the approach you were looking at? Okay, or you just kind of wrote and this is what was coming.
Yeah, and I know I've said this already before, but once again, this is not a diss to anyone or like I don't want any other bands or anyone from Long Island feeling offended. I just feel like there has not been like a straightforward hardcore band in a minute. Like I feel like a lot of things were leaning heavy. Obviously not just Sound Majority, but obviously with like Sound Majority being like so in right now, like a lot of bands were leaning way more like melodic, which is also fine. Like all those styles are fine, but I think especially as a promoter, and not even just a fan, but as a promoter, but like when all of these bands kind of sound the same, not sound the same, but like when they're all kind of going for the same thing, it's a lot harder to like diversify a show or like even have like unity between different like subsects, which is like hilarious to say in hardcore, but there is little subdivisions of like what people like, you know what I mean? Not every I wish every hardcore kid loved Youth of Today as much as they love Earth Crisis or, loved like if they like beat down stuff, love like melodic stuff. Like that doesn't always work. So, but when it comes to the like our sound, we just like yeah, we just wanted something that was like straight up hardcore because that wasn't really happening on Long Island. We wanted people, younger kids, more obviously younger kids, to just hear a band like us because like maybe they'll get into something like Floor Punch, maybe they'll get into something like Breakdown or Youth of Today, and then that could kind of change the trajectory of like what younger kids out here care about. I definitely think like I don't say we 100% did the job, but there are definitely young kids who like are a little bit more palatable to like all these different kinds of hardcore and not just sticking in that heavier melodic range, which is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's you do that, and all those bands you mentioned, you hear it, you rest in pieces a little bit. I
Yeah.
vision you guys on the CB stage playing like that's that kind of that music. But again, like I said, with a fresh sound from 2025.
Yeah.
Um, is this something that what would you call you guys? A semi-active? Because I know you guys went over to Europe, which I want to talk about a little bit. You've toured the States. You had a little run. You
Yeah.
play some shows here and there. Like, what would you call it? As like a semi-active kind of for you guys?
Yeah, I would say semi-active just because like, like we're just older. Like hardcore is meant to be, in my opinion, like I'm not being an ageist or shaming anyone who's older because I think hardcore will always stay with you and you should be able to fucking play that kind of music if you want. You know what I mean? I think that as an older person, it's like a lot of us have careers and have jobs, so it's like we can't tour and or like fully tour. So I would never say we're a fully active band because I think that takes away from a band who does tour all the time, like Pain of Truth or Koyo or something like that. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're semi-active. We can make things work. Like we've only done like yeah, we did like a week-long tour in the US with like Echo Chamber, but it took us a whole other year to do even a week-long tour in Europe just because of timing schedules
Hard.
and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard.
It's definitely very hard. But yeah, though hopefully what happens though, like I was saying before, is like a younger band or person sees us and they start a band like Deadshot, for example, like they're 18 or younger, maybe. I don't even know. I think they still might be in high school.
They
Um,
are. Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's like 17 or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's cool. Like someone like that, those are the people like I'm not saying to fully go on tour after you get out of high school and potentially fuck up your future as most hardcore kids do. It's fine if you do that because that's just how we've all kind of done it. But like I hope that they're the ones that are like, yeah, we're gonna do a full US because like we're young and we just want to fucking do it. Because like those are the people that should be touring.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I think that's mostly what you asked. I kind of might have trailed a little bit, but
Ah, that's good.
yeah.
Yeah, it's true. You're right though. At this age, it's like everything just takes longer to get completed. It just
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Also, too, being like active, it's like, yeah, like our 7 inch or whatever came out in 2001. And then since then, we did like a comp that had 3 songs. And then we did a promo that had 2 songs. But it's been 4 years since we actually released like an EP again or an LP, and like we're trying to, write stuff for one more thing because like everyone in the band, like we're happy with what's happened, and like like this is all for fun anyway. Like we don't fully care. Like we did it literally just to show younger people like please write bands like this. You know what I mean? So like. I think we just kind of want to at least do one more thing that we're all very happy with, like on the way it comes out and like the sound and all that. And we're definitely on the way there, but it's been taking some time.
Takes time, right? Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
career and all that kind of stuff, and just life. It gets in the way. But in terms of where you're at now, you have a bunch of songs, and you're
yeah.
thinking this year. or you're not sure?
I mean, it's gonna depend on Richie. It's possible, we have a few songs written, but it's funny though, because like, yeah, technically we have like a decent amount of songs in the catalog, but we keep that set at 12 minutes. You know what I mean? We just play the songs we really like and like the songs that I think people like, and it's like the style of hardcore we write, like it's not a style you probably want to be watching for more than like 20 minutes max anyway. So I rather just give all the energy and just fucking have it be quick, because I mean I'm winded by the end of it anyway, so it's fine.
Well, you have that energy. And well, what's your favorite song you guys have?
Um, it's a good question. I mean, I would probably say, uh, huh, probably, I really like, I don't want to pick one over the other, but like the scheme comp we did, like those three songs, I think are my favorite because honestly, I just love the way it sounded. It sounded like way more like what we were actually going for with the EP. And then after that, the promo songs, I mean, they're fucking great too. Like everything we've done past the 7 inch, I really love. And I'm like, that's mainly the songs we play now. We just play the scheme songs and the comp songs. And then we do like, I think we literally only do one off the 7 inch and
Hmm.
then one that's on a triple B comp. So it's like that 7 inch we don't even really play stuff off of just because like not that we're over it. We all think we could do better and we've done better since then. So we just focus on the later stuff.
Nice. How was
Yeah.
Europe?
Oh, it was great. I've been to Europe a bunch because I used to tour with like Backtrack. I did like
Mhm.
merch for them. So I've been there a bunch, but I never been there as like a singer. You know what I mean? Like I always like even with my other band, The Fight, we did like 2 weeks there, but I was just playing bass. But doing a long like a 10-day long thing and like singing definitely sucks for in terms of like your voice and shit, but aside from that, like being in Europe and like taking in the cities and stuff, it's great. Like I do find that there's some people in bands from America that like are such babies about playing in Europe. Like they're like, oh, like my phone doesn't work all the time, or like, well, who gives a fuck? Like, don't be on your phone, go and explore. You know what I
Right.
mean? So luckily, everyone we were with was into the exploring aspect, and we didn't really sit on our ass at all. Like even if the van drive and most of them were really long, like once we got in the city and there was time to kill before the show, we were on scooters and just scooting around, the city and just like taking it in. And even with
Yeah.
it being like me being there a bunch of times before, it's like I'll still like I'll if I show up in Prague, I'm spending the whole day going around the city like I don't give a fuck, you know. I'm not gonna just sit in a green room or something.
Right.
Uh
Right. Enjoying yourself because who knows when you're going to get back there again, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Mark from Shutdown. He said that to me when he was younger, and when they toured Europe, he was just all it was and Chris from Sky Came Falling worried about, all right, what's next, what's next, instead of kind of sitting and enjoying it. And
Yeah.
Chris from Sky Came Falling was like when we played Furnace Fest this year, it was like he just soaked the whole thing in and enjoyed it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's which is important. You're right, because if you worry too much about moving forward with what's the next, you're not going to enjoy what's around you.
Yeah.
What advice would you give yourself as a teenager? It could be
Uh
musically, professionally, personally, all that kind of stuff.
I would probably that's a really good question. I don't know. In terms of like the music stuff, I think I'm pretty happy with where I am currently. Like I've stuck to my values and I can't really complain about much. I would probably on like the career side though, I probably would be like all right, hone in more on like what you want to do aside from music, because like the music stuff isn't just the only thing I do. I do also have a job, but the job I work is kind of like something I definitely don't really want to do. So I wish I was doing my actual career, but it's fine. That's probably the only advice I would give. And then also just in terms of friends and everything, just like, don't take anyone for granted. Spend as much time and talk to as many people as you can because sometimes they're not always there. And other than that, that's a family too, obviously. But
Yep.
that's probably like the only advice so far. I'm sure probably in like another 10 years, I'll probably have way more drastic advice, being like, should have invested in this stock or something, but yeah, I should have invested in Bitcoin like 15 years ago. But other than that, nah, like I think I'm happy to say I'm pretty content with where I'm at right now, which not a lot of people can say. So I'm glad I'm at that.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So I guess the end here is just I'll ask a bunch of questions and
Yeah.
first answer that comes to mind here. So performing or promoting?
Uh, promoting.
Promoting. Okay.
Yeah. Do I give a reason or just
If
saying
you
one
want,
word?
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I would say promoting just because in a weird way it's less stressful. There's two different kinds of stress, but promoting, it's like I at least know a majority of the people that are there are going to be enjoying themselves and having a good time and maybe creating other friendships, all this other shit. Whereas if I'm performing, there's a chance that people in the room will hate it. So, at least when I'm promoting, people will be there enjoying it. So,
Enjoy. Awesome. Favorite venue to book a show?
SRC.
Okay. Go back.
Yeah.
Now, this could be hardcore, could be anything here. Top three albums of all time. Your
Uh,
top three albums.
Shit. If all right, are you gonna ask me later my top three bands, or does not work? Is that
I
what I?
may. I
Well, because
may,
I
and
was gonna say, well, I can
I
easily
may
be
keep
like,
it in
well,
Long Island. Yeah.
I was gonna say if I was doing hardcore, it's like all right, I can think of like what hardcore records I really like. But if you're doing top three hardcore bands later, then maybe I'll stray away. But probably my favorite records is like, um, probably fucking. God damn, I wish I could have thought about this earlier. Uh, Not hardcore. I would say like fucking Smash Pumpkins, Siamese Dream. I would say Morrissey. Yeah, I want to say Morrissey or the Smiths. Yeah, I'll say Morrissey, Viva Hate, and then I would say, actually, I'll throw a hardcore record in there because that's fine. I would say, Killing Time, Brightside.
It's a great album.
Yeah,
A show that you're most proud of that you booked.
show that I'm most proud of. I
Goes
would,
back to, by the way, what we were talking about in the beginning. Take a
yeah, I
stop.
would. Fuck, that one's hard. I would say the first, well, not the first, but the 2016 Sound Majority reunion, because that's the time in my life where I was like, as a Long Islander, as a promoter, I was like, I did something that I thought would never happen again. So that
Cool.
I was like, that's the one.
Cool. A band that you haven't booked that you would like to.
Uh, it's a good question. I guess I'll give a reunion answer and I'll give a current band answer. Reunion answer. If I haven't booked them already, I would say either Neglect or Floor Punch, keeping it hardcore. Just because technically I haven't booked Floor Punch, and then Neglect obviously just hasn't played. But then in terms of non-hardcore, a band I would really like to book that I haven't booked yet, probably, and a realistic one, not an unrealistic one. Probably, um, I've been trying to book fucking, fuck, I can't think of the band. Fucking. I was trying for a while to book fucking Behemoth. It's not a crazy one to book, but I was trying for a while to book Behemoth before they got like massively big. But that's another one I would like to book at some point.
Cool. Cool. What did you listen to last?
Before getting on here, I was listening to this band from California called Pseudo Youth. They're like a current younger punk leaning band from out there. The new record's great. They just randomly popped up with an LP. Like I think they had a promo and maybe a demo before that, but like it's the LP. Yeah, it kind of surprised me. It's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Band you like or an artist that may surprise people.
Um, Trying to think if there's anything that would really surprise people. I mean, this is just because I was wearing their shirt the other day and someone was like, I surprised you like this. It's this band. It's a group called Snow Strippers. They're
Mhm.
pretty good. It's like more like I wouldn't say it's like EDM, but it's like leans in like the dancey kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Most underrated band on Long Island now.
Most underrated. I mean, the answer was forever Sound Majority, but they get their dues and they are playing big shows, so I can't even say them anymore, I guess. But underrated. I would probably say, hmm, I would say in my current time, because obviously there's so many bands that are older that are for sure underrated. Like obviously Crackdown, they do get their praise in the New York hardcore scene, but I don't think that many Long Island people really
Mhm.
delve into them as much. And the same thing with kind of Beyond. Like I feel like a current younger kid doesn't really know that. But like in terms of like current music during my time. It's my friend's band, so I'm a little biased, but there was this band called like Bottom Out, which is like the dumbest name ever, but they were great and they didn't really get to do much other than just like play Long Island, but they had a very strong Long Island following, which was cool.
Top three most influential Long Island hardcore bands.
Silent Majority, Mind Over Matter, and I would say Kill Your Idols.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Kill Your Idols really was. They really
Yeah.
were.
Yeah. I mean, Kill Your Idols has such a great message lyrically, like I love everything they talk about, and they two in their lyrics were so DIY, like hardcore circa 1999, just making fun of, or not even making fun of, but just like kind of a diss at bands that were only caring about making money and like all this shit. And just like I relate to that in 2025 in the world I work in. Like it really bums me out when people care way more about money than just like doing something passionately, or or not doing anything just for fun. So
Yeah,
definitely all Mind Over Matter, Silent Majority, and Kill Your Idols so relatable. It's like not even funny.
sure. I think with Kill Your Idols, which is great. They're so in your face also, their music, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of melody to them too,
Yeah.
which gives a nice kind of twist to it. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. So here, Life of a Spectator or based on a true story?
Life of a Spectator.
Of a Spectator. Scratch the Surface or Built to Last?
Scratch Surface.
Man. Vinyl, the last one, vinyl or digital?
Oh, vinyl for sure. Obviously it makes it harder to listen to some things, and like you can't have everything at your fingertips, but it's just nothing better than just having like a physical actual release, Like it actually does bum me out that I think that at some point probably in my life there's gonna be a time where like I can't find some certain band like current bands just because maybe they have only done digital releases, or maybe like they weren't big enough to have like a label press them or something, and I probably will it'll be lost to time because I just won't be able to listen to it. And like I
Right.
used to be so good with downloading like albums and bands that I really liked, where it's like I don't even do that anymore. Like I haven't downloaded
Hmm.
like a record in so long just because everything's either on Spotify or YouTube, which is like really bad. It's like bad for cataloging. So
Yeah.
there will be a time probably where I regret that, but it's just a sign of the times right now.
It really is. Yeah. It's like I was always about getting vinyl and CDs back in the day. Just there was always, I loved that, especially at shows.
Yeah.
It's like so easy digitally now, but I agree with you. It's like not having it in my hand of what it is. Um, it's tough. I miss that.
Yeah. And it's part of the release too, it's like, yeah, the music's obviously very important, but like bands and artists, they put so much time, I would hope anyway, into the way the record looks and
Yeah.
like the lyric sheet, and like the lyrics are so fucking important. It's like digitally you're not getting that. I mean, yeah, like technically Spotify you can add lyrics and shit like that, but it's just not the same.
It's not the same at all. I agree.
Yeah,
Scanlon, man, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
of course.
Coming
It was
on here,
great.
man.
Thank you for
So,
having
of course, of course. So I'm just gonna hang out here. I'm just gonna end off, and then we'll wrap up after.
me. Okay.
Uh, thank you for listening to the What Lies Ahead podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms. Go save the What Lies Ahead podcast playlist on Spotify that features all bands featured on the show. For more information on future episodes, you can go to my Instagram account and follow us at What Lies Ahead _podcast, and on Facebook by searching What Lies Ahead podcast. See you on the next episode.